Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran and a very warm welcome to Audit and Assurance webinar to success, where I will be taking a deep investigation into the September-December 21 exam paper ahead of your exams coming next week, just to give you the right motivation and just to give you the right confidence of having success in your upcoming AA exams. Now, just a quick tutor profile. My name is Kashif Kamran. In terms of my experience, I am teaching the ACC qualification since over 14 years now, and my specialization is in the audit areas, the AA and the AAA, alongside SBL. And my associations are with, I myself own and heads my online lecturer academy as a freelance lecturer. I am associated with PAC, which is a gold approved learning provider of ACCA in Lahore, Pakistan, and then the Civet College in India. I've conducted numerous ACCA webinars for SBL, for AAA, and I have recently started conducting webinars for AA as well. And that will increase. The frequency of the AA webinars will become as regular as the AAA webinars in the near future. I'm also a registered mentor for Oxford Brookes University Research Project. Okay, let's start. You can follow me on the social media. Particularly, you will be interested in this YouTube channel because this is where the recording of the sessions will be uploaded. So you should be knowing my YouTube channel, which is the youtube.com/Kashif Kamran. Apart from that, you can follow me on my other social media links, the Facebook. There is a dedicated page, AAA by KK, which includes information not just about AAA, but AA as well. And you can follow me on my Instagram, kashif.kamran. You can email me at kashifkamran@gmail.com. For any queries, you can WhatsApp me. So you can follow me or you can be in touch with me on the social media links available in front of your screen now. Okay, now the purpose of this webinar is to give you the right exam rigor ahead of your AA exams next week, and the session will act as an icing on the cake. Now, this session has been called at a time when you have exams next week, and by this point in time, you must all be prepared. Now, at this point in time, you must have done everything about AA when exams are like 3-4 days away, and probably at this point in time, you need the right motivation or you need the right confidence just to boost yourself and just to get the right body language or just to get the right mind directions ahead of your exams on Monday. So that is the purpose of this session, not to give you something new or not to distract you from something you've already learned, rather just ensuring this session act as a reinforcement and this session act as a fine tuning. Okay, now the agenda is that, yes, we need to talk about section A, we need to talk about section B, primarily more because section B is of significant weightage in the paper. We need to talk about the marking schemes as well, how to write, that's extremely important, and examiner report. That's where I will be spending most of my time because I believe the students don't read examiner report, and you will be amazed when I will read an examiner report today that to what depth the examiner gives you a constructive feedback. And a lot of time the students are more obsessed with examiner answers or idealizing examiner answers or have misconceptions of writing the same length of answers the examiner is writing. We need to talk about that as well today. But examiner report is a more constructive feedback of the exam sitting. So examiner will give you a feedback for every exam sitting that what was good and what was bad, what the student did good, what the student did bad. Examiner will say stronger student, examiner will say weaker students, to guide you that this is what you should not be doing and this is what you should be doing in your future exams. So it's quite a productive document. And as a tutor, I always like reading examiner reports more than examiner answers, because again, examiner answers is an illusion and you cannot match the standards of them. So it's writing your own answer, but ensuring what you're writing meets the expectation of the examiner. And if you want to meet the expectation of the examiner, the best source to meet the expectation of the examiner is the examiner report, which will be the focal point of the session today. So that's all what we are going through today. Okay, let's start with a deep investigation of the September-December 21 exam paper and talk a lot about it, and you will gain a lot of confidence. So without wasting time, let's get to the agenda. September-December 21 exam paper. Now, just before I go to the platform, practice platform, and we start discussing it on the practice platform, I need to guide you about something very, very important. Now, first of all, we start with on screen, the examiner report. Can you see this examiner report in front of your screen? Please confirm that with in the chat box. Can you see the AA September-December 21 examiner report? Okay, that's great. Thank you. You can all see that. Okay, now, honestly tell me, how many of you have evaluated 2 to 3 examiner reports ahead of your exams on Monday, or more than that? Have you been into examiner reports when you were preparing yourself for the AA paper? Give me an honest feedback. Okay, Kavish is saying I have. Zishan is saying I've read 2 right now before this session. That's great. Okay, Shaksham is saying 1 to 2 yesterday only. Okay, so at least that's good. At least that's good. But you just need 2, right? Just 2, and you believe you have taken control of the AA paper. And again, if I do my own analysis on it, will give you a better perspective. Now, the very good thing in the examiner report is the section A, because we normally knows that the OTQs in the section A are not published if you go to the practice platform or if you download the PDF version of the paper. So examiner do the analysis of the section A with the answers and justifying the choice of the answer. So if the examiner says the right answer was A, then the examiner will also tell you why. So you will learn out of it. So if you want to do the OTQs over the next 3 to 4 days, then the recent examiner reports, like the last 4 examiner reports, will be a wonderful document for all of you to do the section A. So you click on section A and you come to section A, and examiner will tell you all about section A here. And then the examiner will also tell you about example of a case scenario, and examiner will discuss this case scenario with you and will give you the right answers as well. So examiner will give you a case just like you get in a normal paper. Examiner is giving you a case over here. And after the case, examiner is asking you the question number 1. So you read the question number 1, you try to pick your own right answer, and then see which right answer has the examiner given to you right over here. The correct answers are, and then see whether you got the right answer. And then the examiner will justify the reason of the right answer. So you will learn a lot from that, because the reason for the right answer is the learning, and that will help you not to mark a wrong answer in your upcoming exams. In the same way, you go ahead, question number 2, lots of options given. Then the examiner is asking you which of the following options correctly ranks the audit evidence, and you choose the right option. Examiner is saying the right answer is D, and then the examiner is justifying how you rank the reliability of the evidence. So if you don't know the ranking of the reliability of evidence, you can learn a lot from here, that how you rank a reliability of evidence. So that will help you revise the ISA 500. Then you go down, examiner asks you the question number 3. And in the question number 3, the examiner is asking you a question with A, B, C, D. Examiner is saying the correct answers are A and B, and then the examiner is justifying the right answer. The justification of the right answer can help you learn the knowledge and not to repeat the same mistake in the upcoming exam. So if you read the last 3 examiner reports and the section A of the examiner report, and you read a question, mark the right answer, check your right answer with the examiner, and then look at the justification. That will really help you. Yes, the recording of this session will be available on my YouTube channel, and I'll be updating that on the WhatsApp group. So don't be worried about it. But is everyone clear what I discussed with you about section A just now? So 3 latest examiner reports, including the one on your screen, reading the OTQs, marking the right answers and reading the examiner justification. Because when you read the examiner justification of the right answer, you will learn a lot from it and you can absorb it and you can remember it for your upcoming exams on Monday. Is that clear? And how many of you have utilized examiner report for section A so far? Please confirm that as well. I'm waiting for your answers. Okay, Kavish is saying I did. That's good. And Kavish, did you benefited from that? Zishan is saying I did. And Zishan, did you benefited from that? Reading the section A from the examiner report and doing the OTQs? And did you read the justification of the examiner answers? Did you read the reasons for examiner answer? Okay, Kavish is saying yes, it was very good. Shaksham is saying, sir, I found MCQs in examiner report little tough than KIT. But again, Shaksham, the MCQs in the examiner report is what comes actually in the paper, right? The KIT MCQs is a Kaplan perspective or is a BPP perspective. It's not the examiner perspective. So if you want to know the examiner perspective, examiner mindset, then the one in the examiner reports are far better. So the time you will be spending over the next few days now is on the examiner report, even though you find them difficult, but that's the rigor, that's the exam rigor you have to face on the actual day of the AA, right? So I hope you're very fine. Zishan is saying, I found the reasonings very helpful. And you can learn a lot from that, Zishan. I hope you agree with that. Because when you read the reasonings given in the examiner report for section A, you learn a lot from it. And that makes them a spectacular document. So please ensure over the next few days, 3 examiner reports, section A, and you read section A, you do the OTQs, you mark the right answers if you're not done so, because that will give you the right confidence and that will assure that you're gaining most of your 30 marks from section A. Even though section B is critical because you have to gain significant number of marks from section B to pass your AA in the first go. And I honestly believe any student who is strong in section B will eventually pass. Because even though if you're scoring like 50% marks from section A, for example, a student score 50% of the marks from section A, like that's like 15 out of 30, you need to gain a lot from section B. And section B is very predictive, is very organized. I hope you agree with me. And you know the topics which come in section B, and you must have polished them by now. So you have to ensure the section A, right? I'll go back and we move back to the title page of the examiner report and we go directly into section B, right? That's where the section B is starting from. And we need to spend a lot of time on section B today to help secure most of our marks. Now, what I have done to save my time, I have copied the extracts of the examiner reports, which are the more important one, while I was reading this examiner report for the session, and put them on my Word file, which I will be sharing with you. I hope you can now see the Word file in front of your screen, and this will be shared with you on the WhatsApp group, so don't worry about it. AA exam drill session, getting success in the AA paper, September-December 21 exam, paper analysis. I hope you can see that. Now, when you evaluate the paper, the September-December 21 paper, section B, right? We're talking about the section B of the paper right here. In the section B of the September-December 21 paper, there were 16 marks allocated to audit risk and responses, which is quite common, right? Every time you open up a section B, in the section B, you find a question on audit risk and responses. And I hope that's 9 out of 10 exam settings or 10 out of 10 exam settings. You do find a question on audit risk and responses. That's how the section B starts with. So the very first question of the section B has to be on the planning stage of the audit. Then substantive procedures in the entire section B of the September-December 21 paper was 21 marks. There was a complete question on substantive procedure. And I think there were like 4 marks or 5 marks of substantive procedure, even in the first question on audit risk and responses. So the total worth of marks on substantive, I'll show you that, were 21. So look at the number of marks. Internal controls, deficiencies, and recommendations, which is again a very common parameter in your section B. A lot of time you get a question on weaknesses in internal control and recommendations, worth 16 marks. Then the miscellaneous parts, because if you look at the 16 marks, the 21 marks, and the 16 marks, they almost make up like the 55 marks out of 70 or 53 marks out of 70, which is a significant proportion of section B. There were just 5 marks on audit report. There were just 4 marks on fraud and error knowledge. There were 4 marks on limitation of internal controls knowledge. And there were 4 marks on ethical threats and safeguards, even though we know that most of the time, the ethical threats and safeguards come in the section A of the paper, but it's very fine to find them in section B as well. Look at the number of marks, 4. You might get more than 4 marks on ethical threats and safeguards in section B, but that's not very common. The very common phenomena with ethical threats and safeguard is in the section A. But look at the paper. Now you need to agree with me on one thing, which is right here. The audit risk, internal controls, substantive procedure, and audit report are the core areas for section B. I hope you agree with me. Audit risk, audit report, substantive procedures, and internal controls are the core areas for section B. And you need to ask a question to yourself now: how much confidence you have on audit report, internal controls, substantive procedures, and audit risk, because this is the core part of section B, and this is exactly what will benefit you when you are passing the AA exam. Okay, Sham, I'll just come back to your question when I start substantive procedures, or if I fail to answer your question during the session, please do WhatsApp me your question and I will be more than happy to answer you. Okay. However, in each exam sitting, the examiner can make use of other core areas within section B, which include subsequent events. You must have seen questions on subsequent events coming in section B, adjusting and non-adjusting, and then thinking about their impact on audit report. Going concern, or a question on ethical issues and safeguards, even though ethical issue is a more common topic in section A. So can you find a question on subsequent event in section B? Yes. Can you find a question on going concern in section B? Yes. Apart from internal controls, apart from substantive procedures, apart from audit report, and apart from audit risk. So now tell me, how many of you feel confidence on section B as of today? If you have done 5 questions on audit risk, you've done 5 questions on internal control, you've done 5 questions on substantive procedures, and you've done 5 questions on audit report from the recent papers, you will be happy because you got the right exam rigor. If you have done plenty of past papers, but the older ones from the revision kit, you have done like 20 questions, 30 questions on audit risk, but they're not quality. The quality is the recent paper. The quality is what has come in the recent paper. So have you, all of you have done 5 questions each on audit risk, internal control, substantive procedures, and audit report from recent papers from like September 18 onwards to December 21? Have you done so? Okay, Kavish is saying I've done it. That's wonderful, right? And I hope you feel confidence, right, of handling a question on weaknesses or test of controls, or handling a question on audit report, or handling a question on substantive procedure. And honestly tell me, how much is the repetition in AA? How much time you feel that there are similar things in the scenario, which you must have seen in the previous exam setting? The requirements are the same, right? The requirements are the same. There is no change of requirements. You find a lot of similarity in the case studies as well if you've done 5 case studies, right? So I hope there is a lot of repetition if you do 5 papers, and that repetition is an opportunity you have in the AA paper, and that will benefit you on the day of your exams coming up for June. So do you agree there is a repetition? At least the requirements are the same. All of you agree? The requirements never change of a question in the AA paper. So you should be familiar with the requirements. And the more important thing is the repetition, right? Yes, the knowledge questions are also repeated, like limitations of internal control have come so many times, or the auditor responsibility for laws and regulations have come so many times, or the auditor responsibility for fraud and error has come so many times, or using the work of an expert has come so many times, right? So there's quite a repetition. So if you have done papers from September 18 to December 21, and you have done them in the right manner, you must have found that there is a lot of repetition. Yes, Shaksham, I've noted your question and I will be answering to it in the session today. Don't worry about it, because that's not just your question. That's exactly the mindset of the students, which I will be looking for and answering. Okay, I've noted your question as well, Nihar. I will be answering it shortly when I start looking at internal controls. And Shaksham, I've noted your question as well, and I'll be answering it shortly, right? So just post your question, and I'll be answering the questions in the Q&A session shortly. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So September-December 21 paper, section B was dominated by audit risk, substantive procedures, and internal control deficiencies, which accounted for 53 marks out of the total 70 marks available in section B. And that's just realistic. And I think the students have a very, very big fear factor from substantive procedures. They run away from substantive procedures. I don't know why, because that's the easiest topic you have in AA and even in the AAA exams. But students have a psyche that they have like they have an inherent limitation, some sort of that when it comes to substantive procedures, though it's the easiest topic, and I'll be demonstrating that. Okay, let's first get down to the section B first question, and we have to read the examiner report as well. I have divided this Word file into different sections. The first section is audit risk, and everything the examiner has talked about on audit risk, I've just dumped here. So there are like points which I've copied from examiner reports, and there are a total of 11 points examiner has wrote on audit risk. We need to read each of those 11 points on audit risk just to ensure that every point will give you an incremental mark in the AA paper. Every point of the examiner is an opportunity to learn, and every opportunity is an incremental mark in your June 22 exams. I hope you agree with it. So if you're not reading an examiner report, you are unaware of the opportunities. If there is a criticism of the examiner and you have ignored that, and you repeat the same criticism on Monday, what will happen? But if there is a criticism of the examiner, which you know from the examiner report, you will overcome that on Monday and you will get incremental marks. But if you are unaware, you will do the same mistake, and that results into the failure. So try to understand the benefit and importance of spending time on examiner reports in the next couple of days, or next couple of days you have for your upcoming exams for AA. So let's do the analysis of audit risk, and let's find what the examiner is telling us about, and we'll switch from examiner report to practice platform, and from the practice platform to the examiner report, because we need to do a lot of analysis. Okay, first thing, marks are awarded for the identification of audit risk, which is half a mark each. So if a student correctly identify a risk, you are worthy of getting half a mark. Explanation of the risk is another half a mark. So one risk is 1 mark, half for identification and half for explanation. So even if a student identifies, you're getting half out of 1, but half for explanation and half for identifying. That's number 1. And an appropriate response to each risk is 1 mark, and 1 mark you get for an appropriate response to each risk. We'll see what is the examiner criticism on response, and we'll see what is the examiner criticism on explanation. With a scenario-based requirement, listen to this very carefully, such as this, the good exam technique is critical. Now, when you're reading a scenario, a good exam technique is critical, which mostly students don't adopt. The scenario will typically contain more than the number of risk required. So it is important that the candidate plan their time carefully and only attempt to list the required number of points. How many times the student asks, if the examiner is asking for 8 risks, can we write 10? There must be many students in the live session as well. This question comes to me every day. If the examiner is asking for 8 risks, can we write 11? Is the examiner giving you the answer? Examiner is saying the scenario will contain more than the number of risks required. So you need to choose the best 8 you can write on. So if the question is asking for 8 risks, there might be 12, for example. And from the 12, you choose, okay, these are the 8 I can write on, and these are the 4 I cannot write on. Because you might not be clear with every risk. You might not understand a certain risk, but you have an opportunity. And this happens with internal control weaknesses. There will be more weaknesses in the question than asked for. So whenever examiner asks you something like 6, 8, 5, 4, there will be more than that in the scenario in any topic, right? But you need to find the best one you can write on, right? Is that clear to all of you? So stick to the number of risks you have to write, not more than that, but choose the best one out of the given in the case study. So will the case study have more risk? Yes, but you need to choose the best 8 you can write on. I hope that's taken. Moving on, next paragraph. The first step is to identify the factor which will give rise to an audit risk. So you're reading a case, and from the case, you will identify a factor which gives rise to an audit risk. This information can be found in the scenario. All of the information in the scenario should be read carefully, including the opening paragraph, as this may include information relevant to identification of audit risk, such as whether it is a new client, which is often overlooked. So a lot of times the students overlook the opening paragraph, and in the opening paragraph, there can be a risk like this is a new audit client, and you did not read that, and you lost your 2 marks, 1 for risk, 1 for response. So please ensure you are reading the opening paragraph, because in the opening paragraph, there could itself be an audit risk. An examiner is saying students mostly overlook that. I hope you're clear with the point number 2. Have you learned something from the point number 1? More risk and less to write. Choose the best one. Point 2, read the opening paragraph because there could be a risk in the opening paragraph. 2. 3, when undertaking this read through, a useful technique which could be adopted would be to use the highlight function, as this provide a visual aid for quickly spotting the audit risk. So when you're reading, highlight them. So the highlightings will become the visual aid for you to pick later, okay, this is the risk. Having looked at the whole scenario and highlighted the relevant points, candidates should pick up the points they are best to develop at, reread them from the scenario, draft their answer as they work through the issues, taking care to address the number of risks required. So again, the examiner is saying taking care of the number of risks required, not more than that, but try to choose the best one you can write on. And while you're reading the case, just annotate them. Just let me demonstrate that quickly. If I can take you to the practice platform. Just give me 1 minute. I hope you can see the practice platform in front of your screen now. Please confirm that. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, now, for example, you have to read and you have to copy paste and then develop. See, if I'm a student in the exam hall, I'll start to read the question quickly. 8 audit risk. Okay, I need to pick 8 audit risk. I highlight that in yellow, and I need to write a response. So I know how many risks to write, and I need to write a response for each. Examiner has given me the workspace to dump the answer. It is the 1st of July. You are an audit supervisor with Apricot and Company, and you have been assigned to the audit of Peach Company, a soft drink manufacturer which sells to the wholesale customer. You are currently planning the year-end audit for year ending 31st of August and have received the following notes from the partner. Materiality for the draft financial statements have been calculated at $153,000, which is 5% of the profit. So if I need to comment on the materiality, I need to judge whether a misstatement is material or immaterial. The threshold of materiality is $153,000. So anything less than $153,000 is immaterial. Anything equals to or more than $153,000 is material, either in individual or in aggregate. Planning meeting notes. A new accounting system was introduced via a direct changeover in March 20X5. It has been successfully tested prior to the implementation, and management had such confidence in the new system that it did not consider it necessary to undertake further testing after the implementation. Now, anything which is new, like a new accounting system, is itself a risk. You highlight this in yellow and you copy it while you were reading it, and you copy the statement and you put it here, paste. So when I done my reading, I will have a lot of copy paste statements coming in my audit risk table. So we know the new accounting system can be risk because the accounting system connects with the financial statement. And if there is any issues in the accounting system or any errors in the accounting system, because it says management was very confident and they did not consider any necessary further testing. So if further testings have not taken place, there might be a bug in the system, there might be an error in the system, there might be some malfunctioning in the system, and that might really spoil the credibility of the financial statements. And something could be under and overstated in the financial statement if the new accounting system is not running in a very, very effective manner. So new accounting system was introduced and you need to convert this into a risk. Read further. Peach Company has been developing a new production process which will help to reduce the sugar in its drink by 50%. Development commenced on 1st November and the total amount capitalized was 0.8 million. On the 1st of May, the Food and Safety Authority approved the process and production of the new reduced sugar soft drink commenced. So the development cost commenced on 1st of November and the total amount capitalized is $0.8 million. You can copy the statement and you can bring it down over here and you can comment on it that because Peach Company has been developing a new production process, there is a possibility that the $0.8 million, which has been capitalized, also includes an element of a research cost. And the research cost should not be capitalized, rather expensed out. If the management has capitalized the research cost, which is included in the 0.8 million, then your intangible assets will be overstated and your expenses will be understated and your profit will be overstated. So you need to go about it. So when you're reading, highlight, and whatever you highlight, copy paste that in the audit risk area. So once you complete reading and you come to the writing area, you already know the points and you just need to add on. So identify and explain. So can you see my table? My table has identify already, but I just now need to convert that to an explanation to fetch my marks. I hope you're clear with that. So in the same way, you keep reading down, 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 and you will find more than 8 risks. Try to choose the best 8 you can write on and keep pasting the risk in the table, the one you want to write on. If you find a risk and you don't know what is the risk, ignore it. Don't paste that risk in the table. In the table, only paste the 8 risk you will be writing. If you're reading a risk and you don't understand it, don't highlight it. Don't even paste it in the table. I hope you're clear with that, right? Right. I hope you are clear with it, all of you. So let's go back to the report we were reading. And whenever we have to jump, we'll jump to the platform. So examiner was saying how you should read. So examiner is saying while you're reading, annotate, you can copy paste the points into your response option so that after the reading, you know the points and you can start to write on points, right? So copy paste is a good command. You can make use of copy paste, but it's not like you're copy pasting the whole scenario. Just like I demonstrated, right? I just copy pasted a sentence to remember later what to write. And I'll convert the new accounting system into a proper paragraph, or I'll convert the development cost of 0.8 million into a proper paragraph. So that much copy paste is allowed, provided you explain them later in your own words. Okay, next. I'm reading the point number 4, right? In Peach Company, the question requires 8 risks to be identified and explained. Candidates should expect a range of topics within an audit risk scenario, some of which may be some of them will be more challenging than others. So examiner is saying some of the risks might be more challenging than others. In Peach Company, for example, many candidates failed to fully understand the risk relating to the cost omitted from the contract with the new bottle supplier. So is that anything to worry about? Because there will be more than 8 risks in the scenario. So if you are blur on a risk, will you write it in your answer? No. If you don't understand a risk, will you write that in your answer? No. But is that a stress level? It could be a stress level if there are only 8 risks in a scenario and you need to find 8. But is that the case? Is that the case in the AA paper? That is not the case in the AA paper. You have more risk and you have to write less. So if you don't know a risk and you are not sure of a risk, will you ever bother to write it? You will be a very bad student if you write a risk on which you're not sure, or you write a risk on which you are blur. Never do that. Never do that, right? So examiner is saying that student failed to pick a risk from the cost omitted from the contract with a new bottle supplier. Most of them struggle with this risk. Number 5, financial accounting knowledge is also important, as audit risk will often focus on accounting treatments used in financial statement. Yes, that's the reason you should know your financial accounting knowledge from the F7 paper. The number of accounting standards you do in the F7 paper are all examinable in the AA paper. So the FR accounting standards comes in the AA paper, and we know the risk can be developed from an accounting issue, just like IS 38, that the research cost should be expensed out rather capitalized, and the development cost should only be capitalized subject to a criteria which should be fulfilled. So you should know the accounting knowledge to connect and find a risk. So that's quite fine. In Peach Company, accounting issues which give rise to audit risk includes the intangible asset. We already picked intangible asset, the development cost, property, plant and equipment, if you read later, inventory valuation, and legal provision. So examiner is saying these were the accounting risk in the scenario: legal provision, property, plant and equipment, inventory valuation, and intangible assets. So that's like IS 38, IS 16, IS 2, and IS 37. Having identified the risk, the next step is to explain. Listen to this very carefully. The next step is to explain the risk. To do this, candidates need to state the specific area of the financial statement impacted with an assertion. Now, you will say, oh, we need to write an assertion because you're not reading the statement after. To explain a risk, the candidate need to state the specific area of the financial statement impacted with an assertion, or look at this word or. It's not like you're writing assertion every possible time, because examiner is giving you an or a reference to an over and under, misstated, or a reference to inherent control detection risk. So look at this statement here and be very careful. If I can just show you an example, Control C. No, you don't need to state the reference number or the title of the IAS. There are no marks for putting the name and the reference number of the IAS in the AA paper, and that same rule is in the AAA paper. So when the AAA paper does not have this rule, how can the AA paper have this rule, right? So when you see examiner answer, because examiner answers are tutorial guidance, so examiner will put them. But when you are writing in the exam paper, you're not bound to write the name and the reference number of the accounting standard. But if you're writing it like spontaneously, you have a writing style, a student has a writing style of writing the name and number, then fine, go with it. But it's not necessary because you will not fetch any marks out of it. Okay, just let me demonstrate you something. There is another Word file which I'll share with you. If I do something extra, I'll put on this Word file and I'll share this with you. Now look at this comment of the examiner on audit risk. Look at this comment. Examiner is saying, having identified the risk, the next step is to explain. And to do this, the candidates needs to state the specific area of the financial statement which is impacted, or a reference to over, under, misstated, or a reference to inherent control, or. These are all or, right? So it's not that you're doing all of them. It's you are doing one of them. So it's not like examiner saying do this, do this, do this. No, one of them. I hope you're clear with that word or, right? Or means option. Now look at some examples here. Look at some examples. The development cost of $0.8 million was capitalized, for example. Now, if I'm writing an answer and I need to look at the examiner comment here, see a bad answer and a good answer. One student says development cost of $0.8 million was capitalized. There is a risk that $0.8 million could include a component of research cost like the cost incurred on feasibility of new soft drinks with less sugar. So management might have done a feasibility study, right, of a new soft drink with less sugar, and that is included in the $0.8 million. There is a risk that $0.8 million could include a component of the research cost, like the cost incurred on the feasibility study of a new soft drink with less sugar, full stop. If research, then you write the accounting treatment because you're working here. The research cost should be expensed out, and only the development cost which meet the criteria laid down. Now, this is a question of Nihar, right? Laid down in relevant accounting standards. They have not named the standard. The research cost should be expensed out, and the development cost which meet the criteria laid down in the relevant accounting standard should be capitalized. My last statement. If research cost is capitalized, it will. Examiner is saying the candidates needs to identify the specific area of the financial statement. It will understate the operating expenses and overstate the intangible assets and profit. Full stop. Fine. Look at this. This is a complete statement worth 1 mark. I identified in the bold, I explained in the unbold. But look at this last part. Look at this last part. This one. Look at this last part. Let me put this in blue. Look at this last part. Examiner is saying to do this, the candidate needs to state the specific area of the financial statement or the assertion or the under and over statement or a reference to inherent control or a detection risk. We normally give reference to control and detection risk, right? We never give references to inherent risk because in the entire case study, all of the risk, majority are inherent. If we get a control weakness, we'll say, okay, this is a control risk. Or if it is a new audit client, we'll say, okay, this is a detection risk, right? Now, listen to this. It's not possible every time. For example, the question says the company if a student says in the exam paper, asset See this asset. Examiner will ask you which asset. Specific. Look at this word specific. So if you say asset is not specific till the time you say intangible asset, because intangible is specific, because there are so many types of assets, tangible, intangible, right? So you need to be particular. Current assets. So you need to be very specific of the area of financial statement. A lot of times the student write the journal terminology assets, which is wrong. I hope you're clear on that. Listen to this. Now, for example, you say this, it is a new audit client, and you're writing on this. The question says it's a new audit client, right? And you're writing on it. Yes, you will lose marks if you're not precise, because there is a half a mark for explanation. So if you're not precise, you will not be getting that half a mark. So examiner is saying when you are explaining, you have to be very specific. And you need to fetch that half a mark, right? Now listen to this next comment. It is a new audit client. Now, how would you write it? You will say, being a new audit client, the audit firm will have less knowledge of business, will have less knowledge of business, and this will increase the detection risk in the first year audit. This will increase the detection risk in the first year audit, as the audit team might overlook certain misstatements in the financial statements. Now you cannot write an under and over statement. This is not a point where you can write the under and over statement, but examiner is saying either you link it with a specific area, either you link it with an assertion, either you link it with under or over statement, or you linked it with inherent control or detection risk. So see, I linked this with detection risk. So I'm telling examiner, because of the less knowledge of business, this will increase the detection risk in the first year audit, as the audit team might overlook certain misstatements in the financial statements. So I've justified it. So you need to be very specific, right? Now, if there is a risk in inventory, and you know that mostly the risk in inventory is in the valuation. The management can overvalue the inventory, because the management gets benefit from the overvalue of inventory, because overvalue of inventory will lead to more profits. The overvalue of inventory will lead to more closing inventory, and the more closing inventory means that your current ratio will be good. So management has benefits, right, of overvaluation. So in inventory, the particular point is that the profits can be overstated, or the assets can be overstated, the current assets can be overstated, but there is also a risk that the valuation of inventory could be inappropriate. So you can hit back to assertion. I hope you're getting my point here, right? So examiner is saying that when you are writing an audit risk, your audit risk needs to be linked to something specific. Audit risk should be linked to any of the following. Either you link the audit risk to a specific area of financial statement, or to the under or over statement, or you link it to an assertion, or you linked it to a detection risk or control risk. So this is how you are explaining the risk, right? And this is exactly what the examiner was telling. This is not my words. These are words of examiner. I hope you find them realistic. Are you all clear? I'm moving back to my examiner report analysis. Is this demonstration helpful to all of you? I'm moving back. This file will be shared with all of you. Okay, next. Point number 7. Okay, point number 6. Misstated will only be awarded if it is clear that the balance could either be under or overstated. So a lot of time, the students are obsessed with writing a terminology. Thus, the financial statements could be materially misstated. Examiner is saying till the time you don't specify what is misstated, you will not be getting marks. And this is a very common mistake the students have in the AA paper, that this is what you do. Look at this next comment of the examiner. Misstated will only be awarded if it is clear the balance could either be under or overstated. For example, listen to this example. Now, when I was writing this example, development cost, Control C, and I bring it under here, Control V, and I'm looking at this statement of the examiner, which is very critical statement of the examiner, that misstated will be awarded if it is clear that which balance could be under or overstated. Now, suppose you write this development cost paragraph, and in the end you say, if the research cost is capitalized, it will misstate the financial statements. A lot of times the students have a tendency of writing this statement. They're obsessed with this statement. Whatever happened in the audit risk question, they will say, thus the financial statements will be misstated. Thus the financial statement will be misstated. And in 8 audit risk, 8 times they will write this. Thus the financial statements will be misstated. Examiner is not happy. Examiner is saying it will misstate the financial statement. Where, how? Where, how? It will misstate the financial statement is a wrong statement, right? Is a wrong statement in yellow, because examiner wants to know what is misstated and how. So you put this right statement, Control C, you bring it down here, and you put this in the right context. Just give me 1 second. You put this in the right context. If the research cost is capitalized, it will understate the operating expenses specific area and overstate the intangible assets and profit. So have you specified what will go wrong in the financial statement rather than just journally writing the financial statements will be misstated? Sometime it do happen that it's very difficult to pick up the under and overstatement. In a development cost, you can pick it because you know what will be under and what will be overstated. In inventory, you can pick it because you know what will be understated in inventory and what will be overstated in inventory. In a depreciation expense, you can pick what is under and overstated. You should know the double entries, right? So pick the under and overstatement. But for example, you get a statement like this in the exam paper. Take another example, example 2, and we're out of this quickly. Example 2, the company does not have an internal audit department. Now, this is a statement in the exam paper, for example, and the student picks the statement and then goes down explaining the risk. How would you go down explaining the risk? One student can pick the statement like this. The company does not have an internal audit function, like this, Control C, and you bring it down explaining the risk. The company does not have an internal audit department. This means there is no monitoring. There is no monitoring of the internal control systems, and any misstatements in the financial statements or any misstatements in the financial system or the accounting systems, because no systems are monitored, right? So any misstatements in the financial statement systems or accounting systems will go undetected, which will materially misstate the financial statements. Now can we identify what is understated and what is overstated if there is no internal audit department? Because internal audit department is not a specific area of a financial statement. Internal audit department is not where we can have a debit or a credit. In that case, we can say that the financial statements could be misstated because of the lack of monitoring. So this means there is no monitoring of the internal control system, and any misstatement in the financial statement will go undetected, which will materially misstate the financial statement. This is a control risk. This is a control risk. Full stop. So I'm telling examiner this is a control risk. I don't like student telling this is an inherent risk, because in the case, every risk is an inherent risk. There will be few control risk. So you have to give them a special treatment. There will be only one, max 2 detection risk. So you need to give them a special privilege. But there might be more than 6 to 7 inherent risk in the case study. So you cannot write, this is an inherent risk, this is an inherent risk, this is an inherent risk. Just leave that out. Is everyone clear with this explanation of the internal audit department? Now we cannot write the under and over statement with the internal audit department. Am I right? But we can write it with property, plant, and equipment. We can write it with legal provisions. If provisions are not recorded, the liability is understated, the expenses are understated, the profit is overstated. We can write that, right? I hope you are with me, right? I'm not getting any of your answers. Are you clear with the example too? All of you? Good. And are you learning from it, right? Because that's very, very important. Okay, let's go back to the Word file. So examiner is saying that misstatement alone will not give you marks till the time you specify. For example, if the risk should have been described in terms of an understated balance, then no credit would be awarded if the candidates refer to a misstated balance. So if you can tell that the balance will be understated, examiner loves that word, rather than you tell a misstated balance. So examiner is not liking the word misstated balance. Examiner is rather liking a word understated balance or overstated balance. So please come out of that way of writing if any one of you have that way of writing before you enter the actual exam hall. The point number 7, the explanation of risk must also clearly state the specific area of the financial statement impacted. We have covered that, right? For example, in respect of the issue of the development expenditure capitalized as part of the intangible assets, only noting assets could be overstated, see, would not be awarded credit. Someone was asking me, will I get marks? I think Nihar was asking. No marks, see. Examiner is saying if you only write assets could be overstated, even though you wrote overstated, examiner like overstated, but examiner is not liking assets because you are an accountant. An appropriate explanation in this instance would be intangible assets could be overstated. Look at this, intangible. How many of you do write assets, not specify which assets? Tell me honestly, you have exams on Monday and you can overcome this, right? Okay, so are you learning Shaksham? Are you learning an incremental mark? Now, suppose on Monday you were in the exam hall and you were writing assets, or liabilities, not current, not non-current, and you're losing marks. So reading the examiner report has given you incremental marks, Abu Bakr. Reading exam report has given you incremental mark, Shaksham. So that's the benefit, right? That's the benefit, that you don't read it. That's the big problem with all students, not just with you, but all of you. So is examiner reports productive? Then the answers you read and you get obsessed and you idealize examiner answers, your stress level goes up, you start feeling headaches. But you never read examiner reports. I don't know why. Next, point number 8. Care must also be taken to explain the risk based on the information within the scenario. So whatever risk you are explaining, you should explain that within the context of the case. For example, some candidates explained the issue of loan covenants relating to minimum profit and sales target. Now, in the question, there was an issue that there was a loan taken by the company and the loan has covenants of minimum profit and sales target. Now, what can happen wrong? Because the company don't want to repay the loan, will they misstate the minimum profit? Will they keep the minimum profit misstated? Will they keep the sales target misstated to meet the covenants of the bank? Will they overstate the sales to meet the sales target? Will they overstate the profit to meet the minimum profits? Tell me. Just to ensure that the loan covenants are not breached. Because if the loan covenants are breached, what will happen? You have to repay the loan. And will the company likes to repay the loan? No. So what will the company do? Will the company fabricate the loan covenants? Will the company fabricate the sales? Will the company fabricate the minimum profit? So will the company overstate the profit to keep it at the minimum level required by the bank? Will the company overstate the sales figure to meet the required sales level required by the bank? Agree, disagree? Waiting for your answers. Do you agree with what I just told you? Right. So for example, some candidates explain the issue of loan covenants relating to the minimum profit and sales target as being a going concern risk. Now, see, this is what the student think. And I think this is an obsession of student. They link every point with going concern. If the research cost is capitalized, the profit will be understated. The profit will be overstated, sorry. If the research cost is not capitalized, the company will not be a going concern. The company does not have an internal audit department, thus the company is not a going concern. Students have this very bad habit of linking every possible point with a going concern indicator, because I don't know, the student likes closing the company. The student likes liquidating a company. But I believe you are all becoming a liquidator accountants. You like to do the liquidation accounting a lot. You cannot link every point with going concern. However, there was no indication from the information provided about Peach Company that Peach Company is experiencing any going concern difficulties or that it would be a consequence of the breach. So examiner is saying there was nothing in the case study about going concern problems, but the student linked the loan covenants with the going concern problem. In this case, the risk relating to the overstatement of profit or sales in order to meet the covenant. See, there is a risk that you can overstate the profit and overstate the sales to meet the loan covenant, and that was the right answer. Candidates must take time to carefully read the scenario, noting any relevant information to ensure they correctly understand and describe the audit risk arising. So are you all clear? Just let me show you this clearly and moving out of context. I hope you can see the practice platform back again. Okay, look at this. Can you see this last paragraph on the screen on left? I'm reading it out, all of you. Look at this last paragraph. In order to fund the development of the new production process and the purchase of new machinery, Peach Company obtained an interest-bearing loan of $1.2 million on the 1st of March, repayable over the next 3 years. So this loan is a long-term loan, and you have to repay this loan over the next 3 years. In order to secure the loan, Peach Company agreed to maintain a minimum profit and meet the specific sales target. So in order to secure the loan, so when you secured the loan with the bank, you agreed with bank that we will meet the minimum sales target and we will meet the minimum profit target. Control C, Control V. So this was the risk examiner was talking about. Now, when you write this risk, you say, in order to secure the bank loan, Peach Company agreed to maintain a minimum profit and minimum sales target in order to ensure that loan covenants, in order to ensure that the loan covenants are not breached. Loan covenants are not breached. Peach Company could possibly overstate sales and profit in order to ensure that the loan is not immediately repayable. So you don't want the loan to be immediately repayable. You took it for 3-year period and you don't want to repay it immediately. So for that reason, you will overstate your sales and you will overstate your profits to meet the requirement of the bank. See, you wrote this risk here, Control C, and I take this risk back to my support file, which will be shared with you. Just give me 1 minute. That was another support file I was writing on. Right here. So this was another examiner criticism examiner criticism on the loan taken, and this is the right answer. So this was the examiner criticism on the loan taken, right? And this is what we copied from the practice platform, this much. Control C, we take it back to my support file here and we copy paste here. So I just wrote my answer. See my answer now on the screen. Do you agree with this answer? Have I put the word overstate? Have I put the word overstate sales and overstate profit? Will the examiner like that? So have I connected things with the case study? Yes, that's even fine. That's even a good way of writing answer, right? There could be multiple more risk with loans, right? This is a specific loan risk. The further risk would be the classification of the loan in current and non-current because it's a 3-year loan. So classification of the loan itself can be a risk. The calculation of the interest cost could be a risk as well. And a wrong calculation of the interest cost could understate the operating expenses as well. So these are multiple risks associated with loan. But the more specific one to write in the exam paper is the one which connects with the case study, which is covenants. I hope you're getting my point here, right? So with loan, there can be multiple risks, right? But try to choose the one which is more close to the case study. Okay, let's go back to the examiner comments, few of the last one. Point number 9. Having identified and explained the risk, the next step is to provide the auditor response. Finally, auditor response. Examiner saying now you need to write the response to risk. Responses must be practical within the context of the scenario. So examiner is saying must be practical within the context of the scenario, and care should be taken to ensure that the response is an auditor response, not a management response. Wonderful. That means some of the student even write the management response in the exam paper rather than writing the auditor response. So examiner is saying you should take care. Auditor responses right here. Auditor responses do not have to be detailed procedures. Rather, it is an approach the audit team will take. Care must be taken, however, to ensure that the approach suggested actually address the risk identified and contain sufficient details. A response of discuss with management will not give any credit, as the candidates need to be very clear what they are asking management about. For the new bank loan risk, an appropriate response would be to carry out a review of the loan agreement to confirm the details and to reperform the calculations to confirm that the loan has been correctly classified between current and non-current liability. This clearly addresses the issue. So examiner is saying when you are writing a response to risk, you need to be very, very particular about writing the response to risk. And he's giving you an example of a response from the loan area. Now see how constructive examiner reports are. They even give you the answer. They even giving you the answer for what you should have written on the bank loan. Look at the other comment of the examiner. Auditor response. Auditor response to risk. And this is what the examiner is saying to us on auditor response to risk. Auditor responses do not need to be a detailed procedure, but it needs to be specific. Rather, it is an approach the audit team will take. So it's more like an approach, right? So what does an auditor response means? An approach the audit team will take. So that's what you need to think about in exam paper. I hope you like this line of the examiner. The auditor response in a risk question is equal to approach the audit team will take to mitigate the risk. Is that the right way the examiner is telling us? Is equal to this? So audit response in a risk question is an approach the audit team will take to mitigate the risk. Care must be taken, however, to ensure that the approach suggested actually address the risk identified and contains sufficient details. So whatever approach you are taking, the approach must be The approach must be sufficient in detail, contain sufficient detail, number one. An examiner saying a response discussed with management is very vague. You should tell what are you discussing and why. So a lot of times the student says discuss with management or recalculate. What are you recalculating? Recalculating the depreciation expense or recalculating the finance cost. So you need to be very specific in your responses. An examiner was giving you a response from the loan area. One response, right? One response per risk, not more than that. When you see examiner answer, examiner will write more than one responses because that is a tutorial guidance. So examiner might write 3 responses for one risk, but you need to write one response, one risk. Is that clear? So the auditor response is basically the approach the audit team will take to mitigate the risk. And you need to be very specific of writing that in exam paper. Moving on to the last comments. Okay, we've done this reading. Okay, and examiner is giving you an example of the bank loan risk, right? So you can learn that from here. Point number 9. Point number 10. Also consideration should be given to the reliability of evidence. For example, evidence gained via a confirmation from a third party will be more reliable than a verbal discussion with management. In Peach Company, the scenario specifically refer to the information based on the assessment by their legal advisor. Therefore, an appropriate response would be to review the correspondence from the lawyer to understand the likelihood of the claim and so on and so on. So if there is a case going on and the company already have a lawyer and the case tell you that the lawyer is dealing with the case, then it is very appropriate to correspond with the lawyer or to review the correspondence of the lawyer to confirm the likelihood of the case or to confirm the outcome of the case. So examiner is saying when you are writing an auditor response, also be critical of the reliability of the evidence in the case. If it is possible, there is someone like a customer. Suppose there is a customer who is liquidating, so you can directly correspond with the liquidator, or there is a legal case going on, so you can directly correspond with the legal advisor, or you can review the correspondence of the legal advisor. Or if the customer is liquidating, you can review the correspondence of the liquidator to confirm how much will the customer pay, and the remaining will be bad debts. So try to ensure if you're writing a response, also focus on the reliability of the evidence in the context of the case possible. An examiner is giving you a very good example of that in the case of the legal risk. So there was a legal risk in the case. An examiner is giving you a very logical answer of a legal risk. Corresponding with the legal advisor was important. This response would be more relevant rather than discussion with management. So if there is a legal case and there is a lawyer and you write a response in the exam paper, correspond with the management, is that appropriate? Or correspond with the lawyer is more appropriate? Give me an answer quickly. So examiner is saying if a student says discuss with management, that would not be better, rather than you say review correspondence from Peach Company lawyer. The examiner is saying this is more reliable in the exam paper than discussion with management. So see how productive the examiner reports are. We are just on audit risk for the last 1 hour now. And the last point, future candidates are advised that audit risk is and will continue to be an important element of the syllabus and must be understood. I hope this last 1 hour might have given you the fine tuning of the errors you might still be doing 3 to 4 days before exam. As Shaksham agreed to that, I think Abu Bakr agreed to that. Candidates must ensure they include adequate practice of the questions. And see, the good thing, in every examiner report, examiner tells you the good questions to practice. So examiner is saying these are the good questions to practice on audit risk. See, this is not my good questions, examiner good questions. Examiner is saying you can do these questions. At least you can do the 2021 or you can do the 2021, not the older ones. The 2020s are fine. That's how you should be going in. Yes, exactly. Your answer will never match the examiner answer. because there is a different way of explaining a point. If I am explaining a point on a development cost, or if I'm explaining a point on loan, or Nihar, you are explaining a point on development cost or loan, and the examiner is explaining a point on development cost and loan, we all three will have different answers. I hope you agree. That is the beauty of a theoretical paper. That is the subjectivity of a theoretical paper. But my point, Nihar, your point and the examiner point will match. I have a point development cost. Examiner has a point development cost. You have a point development cost, match. But the way I explain, the way you explain, the way examiner explain is different. But at least in my explanation and in your explanation, we should not do the blunders which the examiner has highlighted in the 11 points we have covered. So if Nihar and me are doing the blunders highlighted in 11 points, then my answer will fetch 0 and Nihar, your answer will fetch 0. Right? Is that clear to all of you? Nihar, are you clear on this? So please stop idealizing the examiner answers, right? Because I can match my point with examiner. I cannot match my answer with examiner. I hope you're getting this. I can match my point with examiner. I cannot match my answer with examiner. So when you write an answer and you want to evaluate your answer, the best way you should evaluate your answer is in line with the examiner report. Right? Yes, the same goes with substantive procedures as well, right? When you write an answer, right, Nihar and Shaksham, write your answer and compare your answer with examiner comments and see, is there any comment in the examiner report which contradicts with what you wrote? Then that would be wrong. Suppose you wrote a procedure which the examiner is telling in the report is the wrong procedure, cross. You wrote a risk and examiner is saying it was a wrong risk, cross. Or you wrote a risk in a manner where the examiner was saying this was the wrong manner, or you wrote a procedure in a manner which the examiner is saying is the wrong way to write a procedure, cross. I believe the self-evaluation or the self-appraisal a student should do of his or her answer is with the examiner report, not with the examiner answer. I hope you're getting my point here, Nihar and Shaksham and all the others. So try to find your strength and weaknesses from the examiner report. So does your answer contain strengths or weaknesses? The answer you wrote, does it contain strength or weaknesses? How will you know about it? From the examiner report. But if you look at the examiner answer, now suppose there is a 6 marks question on audit procedure, or there is a question asking you 8 audit risk. How many audit risks will the examiner write? 10, 12, 14. But examiner himself is telling us in the examiner report that the student should write 8. See? But you see examiner answer, and the examiner answer will contain more than 8 risks. Let me show you that for just 1 minute, because you're all obsessed with examiner answers somehow or the other. See, I hope you can see the answers in front of the screen now. See, for one audit risk, look at the number of responses the examiner is writing. Look at the number of risks the auditor wrote. Look at the number of risks the auditor wrote. And look at the number of responses the examiner is writing. You cannot write that, because see, examiner answer is a tutorial guidance. Examiner will tell you this all was valid. So you could have written this, 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 but how many? 8. So you need to match yourself with the examiner point. You need to match yourself with the examiner point. You should not match yourself with the examiner answer. An examiner will write more than the number of points. Now, when I go to the procedures today, examiner will tell us that 1 mark per procedure. So if the question is asking for 6 procedure, you should stick to 6 procedure. But examiner will write 10 procedures. So if you're just idealizing the examiner answers minus the report, are you taking the full picture of the examiner expectations? So if you are just idealizing the examiner answers and you're not looking into the examiner reports, are you getting the right examiner mindset? Not at all. And the students have a bad habit running after examiner answers, idealizing examiner answers. If I am writing an answer at home, I will match my answer with examiner points, not how much he wrote. I've never idealized that. Even when I was a student, now even I'm a tutor, I've never idealized that. But the problem with you is you idealize the length of the answer, which is technically wrong. Theory paper, right? And that's the beauty of the theory paper, that all of us will have the same point, but different explanations. I explain in 3 sentences, you explain in 4 sentences. That's the beauty. Is everyone clear with audit risk, the first part? Are you clear with the analysis on audit risk? So look at the depth, look at the rigor provided by examiner in the examiner report, and you can learn so much out of it. And there are a list of good questions to practice. One last thing before we take a break and resume back with the second part. Look at the examiner answers. At the end of the examiner answer, you find the marking scheme. Can you all find the marking scheme here on the last pages of the examiner report? If I'm writing an answer on audit risk for my live session, for example, I will go to the marking scheme after writing my answer, and I'll see, okay, how many risk written by the examiner here are in my answer. New accounting system, okay, I had this tick. Development cost, I had this tick. Inventory valuation, I had this tick. Staff cost, no, I don't had it. PPE, useful life, I had a tick. Fraudulent purchases, no, I don't have a tick. New supplier cost, I have a tick. Legal claim, I had a tick. New bank loan, I had a tick. Loan convenience, I don't have it, cross. I need to find my points matching examiner points. But again, examiner is saying only 8 required. Only 8 required. Examiner wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Examiner wrote 10. Only 8 required. So can you match your point with the examiner point in the marking scheme? At least you will be sure that I picked the right point. I picked the right point. But if you are doing a wrong explanation, you should learn that from the examiner report, not from examiner answer, just the way we did in the session today. I hope you're getting my point here, right? So one final analysis and we're out of audit risk. Listen to this very carefully, because this will be an icing on the cake, and probably you will like this the most. Just let's conclude on what we got from audit risk today. Conclusion. Every topic will take a conclusion, right? Conclusion. Now listen to this conclusion very carefully. When you write an audit risk answer, reconcile the point you reconcile the point you picked. Reconcile the point you picked as the audit risk versus the point the examiner picked as audit risk from the marking scheme at the end of the examiner answer. Is the point number 1 clear to all of you? When you write an answer on audit risk, reconcile the point you picked. Reconcile the point you picked as the audit risk versus the point the examiner picked, not the answer, as the audit risk from the marking scheme at the end of the examiner answers. If your point reconcile with examiner point, that is a good point. Your explanation will never match examiner explanation, because there is no one best explanation of a point, and that is the beauty of the theoretical paper, of a theory paper. Further, if you want to evaluate that what you wrote under a point is right or wrong, read the examiner comments in the examiner report for the audit risk question, and judge how many criticism of the examiner was in your answer, how much of the criticism of the examiner was in your answer. Try to avoid it in the next answer you write. So if you want to evaluate what you wrote under a point is right or wrong, read the examiner report comments in the examiner report for audit risk question and judge how much of the criticism of the examiner was in your answer. Try to avoid it in the next answer you write. And again, what you wrote, there must be a comment of the examiner that this is right. So you can do your S and W analysis, right? Examiner report help you with the SW analysis of your answer, right? Strength and weaknesses. So each S you found in your answer, you should be happy, and each W you found in your answer, you should learn from your mistakes, not to repeat it on the day of exam, not to repeat it on day of exam. Now, this what I wrote is valid for every topic we do today. Are you clear with this conclusion, all of you? Well, can you implement this over the next 2 to 3 days on any one exam paper? Can you do one exam paper this way over the next 3 days? At least the mock exam. ACCA has published the AA mock exam on the practice exam area of the platform. I hope you've seen that. So your practice platform, right, contains the practice exams. In the practice exams, you have the June mock. I'll prefer you do the June mock this way. But again, the problem is June mock will not have the examiner report. So try to do like another paper, like March, June 21 paper. Try to do the March, June 21 paper the way I'm doing the September, December 21 paper. Write your answer, reconcile your answer with the examiner points, and then read the examiner report and try to find the S and W analysis. Right, so I'm just taking a break here. And what I'll do is that right after the break, because I'm not sure of the electricity breakdown as well. So we have done the section A analysis. I've guided you that you have to read the examiner reports for the OTQs, read the examiner questions, judge the right answer, and then see which answer has examiner marked as the right answer and the reasons of that. You can learn a lot from the reasons. We had a word on that, section A. Then we went to the section B, and in section B, we were just analyzing what came in the September, December 21 paper. Quite an obsessed paper with audit risk, audit procedures, and internal control weaknesses. And that's quite common with section B part of the AA paper because these are typical areas. Then we opened the audit risk area. We saw what is the examiner criticism on the audit risk area, where I need to show you the demonstration of how to write, how to read. We went to the practice platform. I read, I wrote, and we developed some examples to help you out with audit risk. On the same way, I'll do the internal control weaknesses and procedures, particularly the procedures, substantive procedures. You will learn a lot on that. So that is it for the first part of the session. When I upload the session, all the parts will be uploaded in a merged uploading. So you will watch one recording of like 3 hours without a break. But currently we are taking a break because of the issues pertaining to the electricity. We need to just take a break and resume back once we have time. So might be the session comes today in some time or tomorrow early morning. I hope you are clear with that, right? See, you should not have silly spelling mistakes, right? Spelling mistakes can be minimal, like 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you have too much spelling mistakes on every answer you're writing, examiner is not happy with that. I've seen examiner comments in the strategic papers. Examiner is not happy at the strategic level, SPL, AAA. I think that same goes with the AA as well. Not too much typing mistakes. In one answer of audit risk, you can have 3, 4, that's fine. But if you're doing it regular in every line, every sentence, every audit risk, that's very bad. That's not professionalism, right? So please avoid that. If there was any question from your side and I missed it out, please ensure you put that back to me. And if I'm conducting a second part of the session today or tomorrow, I'll update you, which will be on internal controls and audit procedures together. And I'll be spending more time on audit procedures because I believe you're more fine with weaknesses and recommendations. And we'll just brush over the weaknesses and recommendations quickly. But the more time we will be spending will be on procedures because that's more critical area and students are very bad on that. So thank you so much, Abu Bakr, Kavish, Nihar, Shaksham, Zishan for being part. And if any question was unattended, please put that on the WhatsApp group and I'll try responding that in 24 hours. I'll see you back with the second part of this webinar to success on AA, where we are investigating the September-December 21 paper. And then the recording gets uploaded on my YouTube channel. Till then, take good care of yourself, study effectively, have a nice day. Have a nice day ahead. And I wish you all the very best of luck for your upcoming exams. This is your tutor, Kashif Kamran, signing off from the first session, AA Webinar to Success by Kashif Kamran. Take care, goodbye, and Allah Hafiz.